Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In this video we are going to try and repair another Xbox One S. Now this one was purchased from eBay for £51. It's been reported as faulty. I cannot get a picture on the TV and there's something loose inside the console. So obviously you need to be careful of that before we power it on. Also the security seal is not present. So this may have been opened at some point. So you can bet your bottom dollar there's going to be a few things being tampered with in this one. Anyhow, let's get it open and see what we've got. So one of my concerns with this is the box is pretty badly damaged. Let's see, let's hope it's packaged well inside. So, definitely something loose inside the console. Lots of bubble wrap, which is always a good sign. Lots and lots of bubble wrap. Let's get rid of all the packaging. Okay, and there we have it. So, front of the console, few scratches. Definitely been opened before, and there's definitely quite a big rattle inside. So it'll be interesting to see what's in this one. This one was pretty much a lucky dip. And as I say, it's 51 quid, so it's one of the cheaper ones that you can get. Oh, there's some labels underneath. Okay, let's read these, see if you can see that. But essentially it says, turns on, no picture, disk drive work, something, can't read that. Don't know, something in box, does that say? Turns on, no picture, disk drive, work, something loose maybe? Yeah, something loose I think that says. Okay. So, let's get this one opened and see what we've got. So, again, so open these up, you start at the back, and I'm guessing this is going to come off quite easy because it's already been opened. Let's just push out where the warranty label goes. See if we get some leverage there. I do need to buy new tools. Off that bottom piece comes. I'm intrigued to find out what is inside here. It sounds quite hefty, to be honest. Okay. T10 or Torx 10 to remove the green screws. Green screens? The green screws. Okay, they're off. Flip it back over. Pry the back off. Oh, one more screw there. That felt a little bit tight. Okay, pry the rear off and the top pops off. That's from my tool. And then let's pop this off and see what we've got. So, looks like the thing moving around inside is the hard drive. Now, that is a 1 terabyte, I think. Let's see if I can see a capacity on it. ST1000, yeah, 1 terabyte, 1000 gig. Okay, be interesting to see if that actually works or not. We can test that though. Chances are it doesn't. There's screws missing. Okay, I just want to check to see what else is, if anything, rattling around inside, because in a moment we're going to power it on. I don't want it going pop, obviously, once we put the power in there. I don't think there's anything else rattling around. No. Right, okay, so let's get some power to it and see if the unit actually powers on. Right, okay, so power. There we go, button on the front. Ah, now there's a problem. So, hold on a second. Just unplug the power again, let me show you. So here should be a tiny little micro switch for the power, and unfortunately that is broken. So that's the eject button, but no, nothing there at all. So it's actually snapped off, so I'm not too sure how the guys selling this on eBay would have known it powered, unless they did it through the controller, I suppose. But okay, so we can probably replace this. The more difficult part is actually replacing the switch, but I think these are pretty much interchangeable, so we can pop a spare one on and see if it powers up. So let's try doing that. So again, I'm not going to take everything to pieces right now. Okay. Let's pop this front control panel off. Okay, that comes off. This should be easy, and luckily I've got a spare one. So let's pop that back on. For a minute I thought I bent the pins. Right. Won't screw it on yet, but it's connected, and let's try it. Hopefully it won't go bang. There we go, we've got power. We have fan. Now obviously there's no hard drive plugged in, so it's not going to do a lot. The good news is we have power. Okay, let's turn it off again. Let's just disconnect the power again quickly. So then what we're going to do is get it connected up to the TV and see if there is any output at all. Okay, it's all connected up. Let's see if we get anything on the display. Now this was the original fault, what they said wasn't working. So I'm not hopeful it's going to display anything. The hard drive's still not plugged in. We get a fan. Now the TV or monitor is on HDMI. Just check that. And we have nothing on the screen. Okay, let's try with the hard drive actually plugged in, see if that makes a difference. Okay, so now with the hard drive installed, let's try that. I can hear the hard drive powering up, which is a good sign. At least we know the hard drive's getting power. Whether the hard drive works or not is another matter. Nope, still no display. So a little bit more investigation is needed. And I think we'll start that off by, let's take everything out, let's dismantle the whole thing and then have a look through the motherboard, have a look at the HDMI ports and the HDMI controller chip. Okay, so the power's out again obviously. Let's strip it down. We'll pop off the controller, front controller first of all. Flip it over. So we need to remove these other screws to take the components out inside. We'll remove the screws which are holding the heatsink as well. So again, using the Torx 10. Obviously the ones on the heatsink are Torx 9. Okay, so with all the screws removed, carefully turn it back around again. And we can start taking the hard drive. Let's get the hard drive caddy out as well. And probably disconnect the power and the data for the hard drive as well. DVD or Blu-ray drive. Power and data removed. Power supply out. Let's just pop off the power connector. Power connector's got a little tab on it you have to push in before you remove it. Little black, I think it's more of a screw holding plate than anything. And then we can pop the motherboard out. No, we can't. First of all, let's take the Wi-Fi card off. And then let's remove the little tab which is just above the USB socket. I have to bend these out a little bit to get them off. Off that pops. and then the motherboard should pop out. So what I've found easier to do is there's a couple of black tabs, you just give those a little bit of a shove. It does loosen up the motherboard a bit. And there we go. Let's put that to one side. See what we've got. Now, before I take the fan and heatsink off, let's have a quick visual inspection around the board. Looks like a little bit of corrosion around here. Doesn't look too bad though. Anything else that jumps out at me? Not immediately. But we'll be able to see more once we get it under the microscope, obviously. But the main front. No, nothing that jumps out at me immediately. Okay, let's take a look at the actual HDMI ports themselves. So they actually look okay here. Obviously we've got to put a meter across them and see what's what, but nothing looks broken immediately in there. So it doesn't look like this is being replaced either. Okay. So what I will do is remove the fan and the heatsink, and then we will see what happens when we put a meter across. So let's quickly pop. So this is a bracket which holds the heatsink and fan on. So I haven't actually found a really good way of actually popping this off yet, apart from getting my screwdriver underneath, leveraging it off. So any tips? Will be good to get them in the comments below, please. Eventually, if you do one by one of them starts to pop off. And then it all starts to become a little bit looser, just like that. There we go, comes off. And then, you turn that over, just disconnect the power cable which feeds the fan. There we have it, the bare motherboard. Okay, so under the microscope, let's have a look at the actual connectors of the HDMI, and they all look pretty good actually. As I said, I don't think this is being replaced. They all look pretty solid. None of them seem to be moving. Yeah. Okay, so they all look pretty solid. So the next thing to check is the EMI filters. Now these are just a little bit further down, so you follow the tracks down. You see the EG8B6 and EG8B7. Now essentially the EMI filters take out any interference that you would get, so it's just essentially a coil which is a filter, and the way to test them is just to buzz your leads across, obviously leads in continuity mode, and buzz the leads across the pins as they are up and down all the way across, and that tells if the coils are still connected and working as they should do. So let's just try it and do that. Okay, pin 1's good. Pin 2's good. 3's good. 4's good. 5 is good. And the next one. 1 is good. There's no crosstalk. So what I'm doing there is just seeing if there's any crosstalk between the pins. So nothing there. Okay, 2's good. No crosstalk to 3. 3's good. 4's good, but no crosstalk. And then the last one, 5's good. So essentially what that leaves for us to test or possibly replace is this chip here. This one here, which is the HDMI Retimer. So this makes sure that, you know, everything displayed on the screen is you know, as it should do, and it's synchronizing as it should. And it's, you know, essentially it's responsible for sending the picture through to the HDMI ports. Now, as you can see, these are tiny little connectors. Now, it all looks good, but what I think I'm going to do is actually just replace this and see where that takes us. You can get these from eBay. They're made by Texas Instruments. And it's quite a common fault. So watching some of the other YouTube videos of replacing this chip, got to say a big thanks, by the way, to Andrew Paul. Been watching his videos on this. It looks to, you know, replace this fixes the issue, and they're only a few quid. So I'll replace it and see the results. So I haven't got any here now, so I'll order one up and then we'll get it replaced and see what happens. Okay, we're back a couple of days later now. So I ordered up the HDMI Retimer chip, which has now arrived, and it's this little bad boy just here. So tiny little chip, as you can see. So let's try and see what we can do with replacing this Retimer chip here. So I'll switch over to the microscope so you can see it in a bit more detail. Let's give it a go. Okay, so here we are. This is the HDMI Retimer that we need to replace. So we're going to get some hot air on that and then try and lift that. Obviously you need to be careful of the components that we've got around there. And this is the bad boy that we just purchased, and hopefully once we get that one on, if we can get that on, we'll have a working Xbox, but let's see. So first things first, let's get a little bit of flux on there. Just make sure it's all nice around there. Good. Okay, some air extraction on, as well as the hot air. Now, temperature wise, I'm running the hot air at around about 490 degrees, and airflow wise, well, on mine it's got a gauge from 1 to 8, so I'm not too sure what that is in real terms, but airflow terms, but let's see what we get. So essentially we're just moving the heat around. Okay, so there we go. Relatively straightforward to get that one off. Now, looking at this, I don't think you'll be able to see it very well on the microscope, but you can see there's some larger bubbles of solder. I think it's the best way to say it. So a few peaks of the solder there. So what we'll do in a minute, we'll reflow the solder, so get some hot air on it again, just to kind of smooth that out a little bit, so the new chip, once it goes down, it should sit nicely on there. So let's do that now, see if we can just level off that solder a little bit. Add a little bit more flux. Just wait for the temperature to build up. Okay. So literally just warming up the pad. Just so they level off nicely. Okay, that looks good enough. See now, if you look on the actual IC, you'll see a tiny little dot just there to the left hand side, just above the number 7. Now that corresponds with the actual dot on the PCB, which is that dot just there, so you know you're getting the chip around the right way. So what we're going to do is literally just place the chip roughly where it should be. Apply some heat just so it tacks to the sensor pad that you saw that's underneath the IC and on the PCB. Give it a bit of, as I say, a warm up. Just make sure it's roughly where it should be, which looks around, well, looks quite good actually. Typical to move the IC. I think we probably need just a little bit more flux in there. roughly in position. The airflow will probably blow it around a bit anyhow, but let's give it a try. Okay. Alright, let's turn the hot air on then and see what we get. As I say, this is the first time I'm trying this. Not a bad first attempt. Do they all look like they have flowed, is the question. Yeah, I think they do. But to be honest, I suppose there's only one way to find out, isn't there? And that is, let's plug it all in and see what happens. Okay, let's give it a bit of a clean up and then we'll plug it in. Okay, so that's cleaned up with a bit of isopropanol. Let's get it back into the case, or at least part of it back into the case. I don't want to obviously get everything back in because it might not work. I might have to take it to bits again. So let's get the heatsink and fan back on. Obviously, yeah, we're going to need some seal on there, some heatsink seal on there once we actually do put this back together permanently, but just for now, I'm literally just popping this in there just to power it up, just to see how we get on. Again, right, I'm not pushing that all the way down on purpose, right? That's just literally for powering on purposes. Let's pop it into the case. Right, none of this is going to sit perfectly because it's not all going to be screwed in. So, do you know what? I think from a just powering on, see if we get a display point of view, we can probably just get away with just the fan and the PSU. Okay, let's try that for now. Actually, you can probably leave that out. Let's try that for now and see what happens. Okay, so there we go. I decided to connect up the Blu-ray drive as well as the hard drive as well, just for powering on purposes, just to give the PSU a little bit of load as we try testing this. So let's see what we've got. Okay, we've got our lights, which is good. Yep, fan rotating, another positive. That looks good. There we go. Brilliant, we've got a display. I'm really happy about that, we got it working. So it's got an error, but let's not worry about that too much. It's actually a system error E106. I believe that error relates to the hard drive. It's got a software mismatch with the actual software version, which is actually on the BIOS of the motherboard. So we can sort that out. What I'll do, I'll create a separate video for that one. I'll put the link in the description below to that, so if you do get a system error E106, you can watch that video and how to actually fix that problem. So I'll go away and do that, and then let's see if we can get this Xbox One S booting up to this dashboard. Okay, we're back. So I have spent the last couple of hours reformatting and reinitializing the hard drive. And also loading the Xbox operating system onto this USB stick here. If you want to know how to do that, you can watch my video which shows you a step-by-step instructions on how to do that. I'll put a link to that video in the description below. So Xbox is still not put together, and I'm doing that on purpose in case this doesn't work, so I might have to take it to bits again, but let's give it a try. So to power on the Xbox and get it into maintenance mode, we need to power it in a certain way, and by doing that you need to hold the eject and the bind or the sync button down and then power the unit on, and you've got to keep holding the eject and sync button or bind button until you hear a certain number of beeps, until the software starts installing. So let's give it a try. So eject and bind together. It's a bit difficult doing it with these micro switches. And then push, let's try that again. Okay, let's see how we get on. Keep holding the eject and bind. Okay, didn't get it that time. Let's try again. Quite difficult to do without the case on. So, eject and bind and push the power button. Keep holding the eject and bind down. One more power up signal, which is good. Keep holding. Another one, keep holding, get the third one, then you can release. And there we see preparing console, installing the updates and verifying the updates. Now this process will take a while, so we'll fast forward through it. It does reboot a couple of times, well at least once. It may reboot a couple of times during this process. So let's wait and see what happens. Okay, so now it goes for the reboot, hopefully. Now the key is here is not to touch the console and just see what happens. Okay, that's really good. So now applying the update. There we have it. So he's asking me to synchronize the controller. It looks like it's worked really well. So let me grab my controller and see if we can synchronize the controller. Okay, let's turn on the controller. Hit the bind button. There we go, so that's the controller's now binded to the console. There we go, we're in. So obviously the console is back to complete factory standard, so we can go through and start selecting our settings. I've got no connection plugged in, but that's good, looks like it's working. So what we'll do now is we'll power off the console, put it all back together how it should be, get some of the, get the heatsink on properly. A bit worried about the processor overheating at the minute because I didn't put any of the heatsink paste on there. So let's get it powered off and then we'll get it rebuilt. Okay, so motherboard stripped back down again from the console. First things first, let's remove the old compound, heatsink compound, from both the motherboard as well as the actual heatsink itself as well, so I need to remove that. So I'm just going to use a tiny dab of isopropanol, it's on there, and then a cotton bud just to try and clean that off. It should come off relatively easily. Give it a good clean up. I think that should do it. So let's just do a little dab more. Let's get a clean cotton bud. Okay. There we go. Now let's do the heatsink itself. There's quite a bit on here. Just get a little flat blade screwdriver and see if we can, yeah, it comes off quite easy actually. Let's just peel that off. Get rid of the excess. Okay. And then again, a bit of isopropyl. And you know, you need to do this to make sure that the heatsink has got a good bonding with the processor, the APU, obviously, because the APU or processor itself can get very, very hot. You know, when I was testing it earlier, I was always worried that it's actually was going to overheat because it was never put on properly as I was testing. But luckily, we were good. Right. Okay. So that is nice and clean. Just pop that out of the way. Let's get the motherboard back again. Now I've got some Arctic thermal compound. So the key is not to use too much on here, but enough. So I think we will go with that and see how that goes. Okay. Okay, heatsink itself, and obviously it will squeeze that all out onto the back pad there. Okay, it's nice and dry, good. Okay. Actually, let's put the cable in first of all, power cable. Just pop the power cable in, line up the holes, give it a squeeze, push it down, get our brace, make sure it's around the right way, and clip it on. The last one is always the hardest. push the other side down too far. Just leave that one off a bit. There we go. Make sure they're pushed down nice and tightly and they don't pop off like that. Okay, they're nice and secure. That one's probably popped down a little bit too far. Good, nice and secure. Perfect. Okay, now we can get the base of the unit. Again, it's always good to have a quick check, make sure there's nothing in there that's going to short anything out. Let's slide the ports in first of all. Just drop it into place for now. Good, they all look lined up, and then we just flip over and make sure these black studs are popped through where they should be. Yep, all looks good. Get it shoved down, making sure that's sitting nicely into the case. Good. Now, one thing to remember is this little USB metal plate we have to put on. So let's put that on now, otherwise I'll forget. Give it a bit of a squeeze, make sure it's nice and tight. Which it is. Actually, tell you what we'll do, we'll take that off. Because I bent it a little bit as I was taking it out. Just bend it back again, give it a bend. Again, then pop it back on. There we go, good. Back on. Okay, so now we can start getting all the other components back in. So let's kick off with, let's do the power supply. And the reason I'm doing the power supply is because I found this really difficult to actually take out. So I've seen a couple of people do it differently. They put the power supply first of all and then do the cable. Some people do the cable first and then they actually put the power supply in then after. So I'm going to go for, let's see if this works, putting the power supply in first of all. Let's see if I can line it in properly this time. So there's these black studs here, which obviously need to go through those holes there. I think that's the problem I was having when I was taking it out. So let's see if we can get those lined up somehow. Okay, they look to be lined up. Again, let's just have a quick check. Yep, all three are through there, good, okay. And let's see if we can get the cable in. So tab to the external side of the case. Don't know if I'll be able to do this, let's see. So if we line up the plug with the socket, like that, and let's be really careful, and let's just give it a bit of a shove down with the screwdriver until it clicks in. There you go, that's popped in now. Give it a bit of a pull. Yep, okay, that's all good. Let's make sure that cable runs nicely along there so it's not going to snag. Good. Okay, let's do... Oh, hard drive next. So again, the connectors for the hard drive are here. You've got a power and a data. So let's get the cables on first of all. The power cables can only go on one way round. You can't really get it wrong saying that, but I do. So power, and why is that twisting? Okay, unless it goes that way. What way does this hard drive go? Let's just unplug that again a second. Try to make sure we get this hard drive around the right way. Yeah, it does go that way. Okay, good. So let's get the cables on. Let's get the data in. And again, they only go one way round. Like so. So power and data, those two there. The cables feed underneath the hard drive. And again, you can just line up. There's a couple of black studs that it pops into. Done, just like that. Okay. DVD or Blu-ray drive next. Oh, but of course, my mistake. Let's pop the hard drive out quickly. We need to obviously connect the data and the power for the DVD drive as well. So let's just quickly pop those two in. Okay. Sit down just like so. Again, there's a couple of little black studs where they should fit into, just like that. And then, my mistake, pop the hard drive in, just like so. So a couple of things left to do. First of all, we need to pop this little black, well, I'm going to call it a screw guide, back in. Obviously remembering which way round we put it. I believe it does go around that way, I think. Hold on, let's have a quick look. You know what? I don't actually know which way round this goes. Do they go to these tabs, go to the front? Oh yeah, so my mistake. A couple of tabs there. Don't know if you can see that actually in the black background, but a couple of tabs which stick out here. Just there and there. They slot into, there's a couple of tabs on the front here. One there and one there. So let's pop that back in. There we go. So they line up. Let me show you that quickly. Hopefully without everything falling out. There's a little black tab there, a little black tab there, which then slot into these slots at the front of the casing. Good, that's that. Now we need to put the Wi-Fi card into the side here. Pop that on. And then obviously the switch control panel, which, as I'm sure you all know, pops onto the side, front here. Just give that a bit of a wiggle. Get that on, just like so. So there we go. Now what we need to do is put all the screws in. So let's do that. Okay, so once they're all screwed in, so that's the Wi-Fi card and the switch screwed in. So just a quick look around, make sure everything's seated as it should be. Looks good to me. Got clear runs for all the screws at the rear. So I'm just looking through the actual holes. Here, and here, to make sure the screws will be able to come through, and obviously one over there as well. Okay. So let's pop the top case back on. Making sure we don't pinch these RF gaskets on the unit at the front. Like so. And what that makes life a little bit easier is now when we flip it over, hopefully all the components won't fall out, so we can actually get the screws underneath put in. Good. So I think this is the final C screw, and then all the rest are the long green screws. Let's just quickly make sure that that's all tight. Good. Okay, so that's all the silver screws. Now these green ones will pop through, but before we do those we need to put the top cover on. So let's first of all do the A screws. So these are the remaining, you should have now 4 black screws remaining, which then just fasten the obviously the heatsink down nicely for us to make that bond even better. So when doing things like heat sinks and fastening back, I like to do the opposites. So just so make sure it's nice and even. I don't do them up that tight. So give it tighten it up roughly first of all. This goes back to my days of fixing PCs. So that way you know the screw holes are all aligned. And then just finish off the tightening by doing the opposites. So that one's tight, we go the opposite. That one's tight, do the opposite. Or the next one along, and then go to the opposite. So as I say, it just evens out when you're tightening up the heatsink on obviously underneath. It makes it nice and balanced. Especially when you've got the compound paste in there, it spreads it nice and evenly. Right, okay, so there's all the screws for now. So let's spin it back over and put the top case on. Okay, and then we can put on the green screws. So just have a quick visual check, everything's good, looks okay. This does need a bit of a clean up, but we can do that after. Now, let's try to put the front bit on first of all. Just bring it forward a bit. Front bit on first. You can see there's a little bit of a gap there. Let's just try it. Bring it over, popping it down. Again, quick check. Okay, that's all aligned, nothing's popping out. Good. Flip it all the way over. It's all straight. It should be. Good. And then we can put in our green screws. Now these green ones are the T9. Just Just double check they're all nice and tight. Done. All good. Nothing's rattling. Good. And then finally, we get the base plate. Obviously, it only goes one way around. There's a big hole at the back, which is where the warranty tab is. Let's pop it on and squeeze it down. Simple as that. All the ports are lined up. Along there, quick check of that. Make sure you can see all the ports correctly. Good. And that's it. Done. Button works perfect. USB ports lined up well. Good. And that is it. We have finally a working Xbox. So thanks very much for watching the video, and thanks for coming on this journey with me. So this is the first time I have attempted to repair an Xbox. You know, one thing I would say, a little bit of a disclaimer, is don't necessarily copy what I've done. I've probably made a few mistakes along the way, so it's not necessarily the best way of doing it. However, it's kind of my way of doing it, whether it's right or wrong. So, it's just for fun. It's not by way means of a demonstration video of how you should do it. It's just my journey of actually fixing this Xbox. So, use this video at your own risk, I would say. I'll put all the links in the description to the tools I've used when I've been repairing this. And I'll actually put a link to Andrew Paul's channel as well, because I've used Andrew Paul's videos to help me repair this, so big thanks to Andrew Paul. Thanks very much for watching. Please, please, please subscribe to the channel. Please give us a thumbs up. It really does help us very much. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Bye bye.